New Bedford, Massachusetts, 1988. It was a gritty, blue-collar fishing port where the Atlantic breeze usually smelled of salt and diesel. But that summer, the air held something else, something cold. It started with Robin Blanchard, then Nancy Paiva. One by one, women began to vanish from the intersections of Weld Street and Route 18. These weren't high-profile socialites. They were mothers, daughters, and sisters struggling on the fringes of society. Because of that, the world didn't notice right away, but the killer did. He was hunting in the shadows of the wailing city, and he was just getting started. On July 2nd, 1988, the mystery turned into a nightmare. A detective searching a stretch of Interstate 140 stumbled upon the remains of Deborah Lynn McConnell. The discovery triggered a frantic search of the highway embankments. What they found suggested a monster was operating in plain sight. Over the next few months, the body count rose to 9. They were found tucked into the brush, discarded like refuse along the high-speed arteries of I-140, I-195, and Route 88. The pattern. The victims were all connected to the same few blocks in New Bedford. The signature. There was no overkill, no messy crime scenes, just bodies left where the roar of traffic would drown out their final screams. To understand the scale of the horror, we have to look at the faces. These weren't just names on a police blotter. They were the heartbeat of New Bedford's West End. The first discoveries. It began with Robin Blanchard, just 24 years old. When she vanished, the silence was deafening. Then came Nancy Paiva, whose brother was a veteran police officer. The realization hit the department like a physical blow. One of their own was mourning while the predator was still on the move. The escalation. As the heat of the 1988 summer peaked, the grim tally grew. Deborah Medeiros, Sandra Botelho, and Dawn Mende. Their remains were being found in a terrifying pattern, always along the high-speed corridors, usually in various stages of decomposition that made forensic timing a nightmare. The mothers. Perhaps most tragic were women like Mary Rose Santos and Rochelle Clifford Dover. They were mothers trying to navigate a world of addiction and poverty, caught in a cycle they couldn't escape before the killer found them. The final toll. By the time Deborah Lynn McConnell and Christine Montero were added to the list, the city was in a state of paralysis. 9 women confirmed dead. 2 more, Kelly Noble and Christine Montero, missing and presumed part of the same dark tally. The pressure on the district attorney's office was suffocating. They needed a name. They found one. Kenneth Ponte. Ponte was a local attorney with an erratic reputation and a history of drug involvement. He knew the victims. He had the temperament. In 1990, he was indicted for the murder of Rochelle Clifford Dover. The city exhaled. They thought the monster was behind bars, but the case began to rot. Evidence was circumstantial at best. DNA technology was in its infancy, and the highway crime scenes were contaminated by the elements. In a stunning blow to the investigation, the charges against Ponte were dropped due to a lack of evidence. He maintained his innocence until the day he died in 2010. If it wasn't Ponte, who was watching the girls from the driver's seat of a parked car? The spotlight then shifted to Anthony DeGrazia. He was a construction worker with a violent streak and a penchant for the exact areas where the women disappeared. He bore a striking resemblance to the police sketches. Police were certain. The families were hopeful. But before he could face the full weight of the law, DeGrazia was found dead in his ex-girlfriend's backyard. An overdose. With his death, the leads went cold. The files were boxed. The highway remained silent. Nine women. 9 lives extinguished in the brush of a Massachusetts highway. Today, the New Bedford Highway Killer remains one of the most haunting, unsolved chapters in American true crime. Was it a local man hiding in plain sight, or a long-haul trucker who viewed the interstate as his private hunting ground? We may never know. But next time you're driving down Route 140 late at night, and the woods press in close against the shoulder, remember the 9 who never made it home. The road doesn't forget. 30 years have passed. The asphalt on Route 140 has been repaved. The trees that stood witness to those 9 final breaths have grown taller, their roots twisting deep into the soil where the secrets were kept. The New Bedford Highway Killer case is often called a forgotten tragedy. But for the families of Robin, Nancy, Deborah, and the others, there is no such thing as moving on. There is only the static of an unanswered question. The final question justice in Bristol County is currently a stalemate. While the names Kenneth Ponte and Anthony DeGrazia have been etched into the history of this case, the truth remains a phantom. Was it one of them? Or is the real killer still out there, a shadow in a crowd, his pulse quickening every time a true crime documentary like this one airs? Every cold case is a puzzle with one missing piece. Maybe that piece is a memory tucked away in the mind of someone who saw a car pulled over on the night of July 2nd, 1988. Maybe it's a confession whispered on a deathbed. To kill 9 times without leaving a single fingerprint, a single witness, or a single shred of DNA. That's not just luck. That's a terrifying level of discipline. Criminologists look at the New Bedford Highway Killer and see a mobile, organized predator. He didn't kill where he lived, and he didn't live where he dumped. He treated the highways of Bristol County like a conveyor belt. The predator's logic. He chose his hunting grounds with surgical precision. The Weld Street area of New Bedford was his supermarket. He targeted women who were vulnerable by circumstance, women whose disappearances might be dismissed by a busy police force as just another runaway or a bad night on the streets. This gave him the most precious commodity a killer can have: time. The vehicle. He almost certainly had a car that looked invisible, a nondescript sedan or a work truck, something that belonged on a highway shoulder at 3 a.m. without drawing a second glance from a passing state trooper. The ritual. He didn't just kill, he posed. The bodies weren't hidden in deep graves. They were left in the interstitial spaces, the strips of land between the fast lane and the forest. He wanted them to be found eventually. He wanted the city to know he was there. The local shadow. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit suggested the killer was likely a local. Someone who knew which highway exits were unlit. Someone who knew which stretches of Route 140 were blind spots for the law. But there is a darker theory. A theory that explains why the trail went so cold, so fast. Some investigators believe the killer was someone with a badge or a position of trust. Someone who knew exactly how to avoid leaving forensic evidence because he was the one trained to find it. It would explain why the women, who were usually wary of strangers, willingly got into his car. They didn't think they were entering a tomb, they thought they were safe. But in the end, the profile is just a ghost, a sketch of a man who might not even have a face. As the 80s turned into the 90s, the murders stopped. Did he die? Did he go to prison for another crime? Or is he still out there, sitting in a rocking chair in a quiet Massachusetts suburb, watching the news and laughing at the silence he left behind? The 9 victims of the new Bedford Highway deserve more than a cold file in a dusty basement. They deserve a name to be held accountable for their silence. What do you believe? Was the killer a local man protected by the community, or a predator from out of state just passing through? Do you think modern DNA will eventually crack this case, or is the trail too cold to follow? Drop your theories in the comments below. We read every single one. Sometimes, it's the smallest observation that reignites the flame of justice. If you want to help keep the memory of these women alive and support our deep dives into the cases the world forgot, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Stay vigilant. The road is long, and you never know who is traveling right behind you.